Hey everyone, welcome to this panel. It's the Eco-Entrepreneurship panel. That's a mouthful. Happy Sunday. My name's Clara. I am kind of half brunette, half blonde. It's a COVID thing, but I'm embracing it. And I am coming wearing a blue sweater, and I'm coming to you from just north of Vancouver on the unceded Squamish Nation lands. And look forward to being here and being your moderator. Okay, let's meet our panelists. Emellie, do you want to start?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Emellie OBrien. I am the founder and CEO of Earth Angel. My pronouns are she, her. I have reddish brown wavy hair. I'm wearing tortoiseshell glasses, and I have a plant and artwork background behind me. So at Earth Angel, we provide sustainable production services to the film and television industry. So we work with feature films, television series. We help them track their carbon footprint, reduce their environmental impact, and we are currently working on productions across North America. And I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you to Young Entertainment Activists and all my fellow panelists for this wonderful conversation today.
Thanks. Christy?
Hi, everyone. My name's Kristy Drutman. I use she, her pronouns. I have dark black curly hair. I have dark brown skin. I am currently in a room in my living room. It has some colorful panels and it's white. And I'm currently based on Muncie Lenape land. And I'm the host and founder of Brown Girl Green, which is an intersectional environmental media platform that's centered around environmental justice, climate advocacy, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks. And last but not least, Steve, please.
Hi, I'm Steve Vitolo, founder, CEO of Scriptation. I have brown curly hair. I think I'm tan today, so I have tan face. And I'm behind me is a bunch of, is a giant coffee station where I have about 4 different machines and an empty fruit bowl. So I founded Scriptation, and we're a PDF annotation app that's dedicated to making the entertainment industry go paperless. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. I could ask Clara how we did on one of her shows. But yeah, that's so the company was founded with this mission of getting the industry to go paperless, and also we felt the way to do that is also if we could improve productivity at the same time.
Great, thanks. And I didn't introduce myself. I was a line producer for over 25 years, and in the middle of kind of the COVID midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it, I decided to stop producing television and focus on trying to produce sustainable productions all over the world. And this is why this panel is so exciting, because being a line producer, I am solutions-based, and you guys are providing solutions. And that is kind of, we can't ask everybody to be sustainable if we don't have the tools that we need to be sustainable, whether that's how to talk about it, how to think about it, how to physically deal with it. And a few years ago, I took a course at ASU called The Sustainable Opportunity. And what kind of blew my mind is that less than 1% worldwide is in this space. This is like the beginning of the tech bubble. So how did you guys get here? What was your kind of moment that made you decide that you knew this was going to work and you guys went full on? Steve, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So I worked in the industry as an assistant for way too long. Let's just say that. And I was working on a show where we were putting out, it was a pilot, and we had a weird schedule where there was a table read, and 2 weeks later we started shooting. And every single night we were putting out a 50-page script to 100+ people. And anyone that knows that works in the industry, once you get a new script, the old script is obsolete. So I, did not consider myself an environmentalist at the time. Of course, I was conscious of it, like any good person should be conscious of it. But it was just this huge waste right in front of my face. And I was the script coordinator on this pilot, and I was the person that was printing that 50-page script and then handing it to the production assistant that was then going to destroy the planet. So even though I wasn't calling the shots, I felt responsible. I was like, here you go, you ruin the planet. So that's how the idea of scriptation came up. It was, how can we make this digital, and how can we also make it practical? Because sure, like iPads were around at the time, Kindles, and you could mark up a document. But even with that, there wasn't it was sort of a similar idea where once you had a draft of a script, then you got a new draft and you had to basically redo all of your notes. So I felt like if we actually were going to solve this paper problem, there had to be a practical solution that everybody could get on board with. And that was the idea of transferring notes from draft to draft. And we were able to do that, and it kind of just caught on. And I think, from what you'll hear, I think on this panel is, if you can get the practical side and the productivity side, and then the sustainability side, then you're going to have a winner, and then we can really push some change.
I'm slow on my mute button here. No, absolutely. I think it's so important to find the problem and solve it, which is basically what you did. You identified one of the barriers. Christy, what have you started? How did you get in here?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely, I would say, early in my career journey still, but I went to university. I studied environmental policy and law. I very much came from more of like a policy and like law background. I was not in like media or marketing. That's not what I studied, but I knew that it was something I was like good at just naturally, like with like storytelling and like the way I would explain the things I was learning in my classes to like friends and family members. They're like, oh, like you're really good at like breaking stuff down. And I was like, yeah, I kind of am, like, and I have fun doing that. And so I kind of started with that. I was like, okay, like I don't really see myself being a lawyer or like trying to make change in like, on the hill. Like that just wasn't like for me directly. And so I started exploring media and marketing, and in the environmental field, even only a few years ago, that was like not really an existent job, like career field. Like that just wasn't really a thing. Like just from my own personal experiences, like there wasn't a lot of internships or jobs where like that was viewed as like a valuable thing to know. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to go down this path and like keep exploring and figuring out how I can do media and marketing related to environmental issues, because the climate movement has a serious like PR problem because it's not making mainstream media by any means. So I was like, I'm going to make my own media then, because I'm frustrated with that. And that's pretty much why I started Brown Girl Green my senior year of college. And I mean, it wasn't able to become a business until like maybe like a year ago, like a year and a half ago. So like I worked on this for almost like, I've been working on this for like 3 years. So it took me about almost a year and a half, 2 years to actually turn this into a business. But like in the meantime, like I was working at a nonprofit, and I was having experiences of like that kind of work experience. And again, I like didn't have a great time there. And so I really wanted to explore like what could it look like for me to keep building out like this media platform, and also be able to like consult companies on how to do better from like a content creator perspective. Because Gen Z and younger people, like we now have the power to hold companies more accountable directly. And I felt like as a content creator, like I wanted to have more of a responsibility around the brand partnerships and things I was working on. And that's pretty much the kind of work that I now do. I create content, but I also have consulted brands on how to do better. And I also like educate people about self-care and mental health and eco-anxiety along the way, because I realize that it can't just be about environmental advocacy. You also have to like support young people on their journey to like learning about these things and not feeling hopeless. So I'd say my platform overall has been able to be a business because people have found value in that. And I think that's pretty cool. So that's been my journey so far. And I am still really new as being an entrepreneur. And And so I come to this space as like a young person. So other people who are, feeling like whatever imposter syndrome, to like be considering themselves that, like, I don't want to say like I made it by any means, but like I'm building something that I feel really proud of. And it's taken years to get here, but yeah.
I think that is very, very cool and super inspiring. Emellie, do you want to tell us what you're doing? You're kind of doing all of it, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Clara. And thank you, Christy, for pointing out imposter syndrome. I think that's a big thing in entrepreneurship circles and for female entrepreneurs specifically. So I appreciate you calling attention to that. But yeah, so basically I studied film and television at NYU. I wanted to help create socially and environmentally conscious content. So I minored in producing. For a long time, I thought I was going to go into documentary work. I wanted to help tell stories that inspired change. That's why I got into film and television. I started to work in the industry. I worked at Focus Features right out of college, and I was tasked with managing their Focus on Green initiative. And that was when I started to really do my research, and I discovered the PGA Green, the Green Production Guide, and that there was this burgeoning movement to make film production more sustainable. And then I wanted to sort of get more involved in that. I was like, wow, I never knew there was this intersection between these two fields. How can I do more of this? And I got connected to Peter Saraf of Big Beach Films, and he was shooting a film in New York City in the summer of 2011. And he basically just took a chance on me. He was like, sure, you can green our set. Let's see what happens. And it was a very, very early time, when lots of people have different names for this role on set now, eco PA, sustainability steward, environmental steward, lots of different names for it. But I basically got this opportunity to work on a professional film set and manage the zero waste and track the carbon footprint and try to get the most sustainable suppliers on set that we possibly could. It was extremely challenging, but it grew organically. Other producers basically started calling me and said, hey, I heard what you did on this set. Can you come do it on my set? And after I worked with Sony on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 2013, that was really my impetus to try to make Earth Angel. Earth Angel started out as my nickname on set. That's what people would call me. They called me a lot of other not nice things too, but that was like the nicer thing. And once you're called something on walkie, like that's it, that's your name forever. And so I decided to create Earth Angel, the company, in 2013. And so it's definitely been a roller coaster journey of creating this business model. You used the words, Clara, how did you know it was going to work? I did not know it was going to work, as I think most entrepreneurs do, right? You just, you take a risk, you give it your all, and you learn and adapt and grow, every step of the way. And that's really been our journey with Earth Angel, and how we've gotten to where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we talk, when you talk about doubting yourself, I mean, we all do that. I did that like this morning, like you just constantly, and I think it's because the space is so new. It's just so new. Like we are literally groundbreakers in trying to figure this out. And it's so important that, what you just said about adapting. And I know that, Steve, that's something I have texted you many times and going, why isn't Scriptation doing this? What I want you to do. And you're like, give me 2 hours and then suddenly it'll do it. So it's how important.
Don't promise that to everyone.
I'm not. I thank you.
That's a Clara George special.
Oh, well, I appreciate it so much. But how do you keep up with these kind of demands? How are you constantly adapting, Steve?
We're in a good position as a company where our user base is the crew. So we're not beholden to the studios. So it's not this top-down thing, it's this bottom-up thing, which is how I feel this whole movement is. It's always a bottom-up movement across history, right? It always is. And that's the way this has to be. So for us, being able to provide a productivity solution that is also environmentally friendly, and then as technologies grow and people want to do more things and people want to push the envelope, we have to adapt to it. And it's a lot of it's a lot of stuff from our side. It's a lot of user requests. Can it do X, Y, and Z? Because we, Emellie knows, like, when you're one of the first people in this space, you can't get all 1,000 things right. And you have to figure out which directions to go. And that is, one of the very hard parts of, managing this, a company like this that's so new with so many new places. It's like, what direction can we go? And Christy said, her business is only 2 to 3 years old, and finally she feels like it's a business. I think I just got that, and we're 8 years old. Emellie, also, Scriptation was also founded in 2013. So Christy, you are way ahead of the curve. I mean, that is like insanely impressive. I'm still feeling like this year is the first time I feel like, okay, this is like a real business.
Yeah, I think that part of that insecurity comes from, like, as you were talking about, Christy, climate anxiety. Like, we always kind of wake up and go, are we doing enough? And it's like, we're doing everything we can. And I was on a great, I was in the mentorship program with Women for Climate, which was part of C40.org. And one of the mentees, her whole platform was ASAP, but it was as sustainable as possible. Do what you can. And I think that that's so important. And I in your podcast and stuff, I feel like you're encouraging people that it's okay. You can't be perfect, right?
Yeah, I would say that, like, if there's anything about my journey, is I try to be as honest as possible, especially as like a young person who is literally just figuring this all out. I obviously had mentors, but like a lot of it has been me just like having to do my own research and figuring it out and asking a lot of questions to, I guess, the right people who really like saw that I was really passionate and wanted to help me out. And it continues to be that I just keep following this space of vulnerability of like, like, I don't have all the answers. And I always tell people that, like, being able to build this platform has been a form of self-care because it's made me face some of like the darkest demons of myself. And it like continues to like be this evolving entity that continues to like teach me how to be creative, and also to like know that it's okay to not be perfect, because perfectionism is like rooted in like a very extractive, exploitative economy, and like mindset of like, oh, it needs to be perfect. Because like even you see like these big corporations that are destroying the planet right now, like they're definitely far from perfect. So why are we like putting ourselves on these like certain pedestals of like getting everything right? And it's like one of those things where it's like we can always do better, but we also have to like recognize our wins along the way. And I think that that's been such an important part of my journey, has been like, you know what, like, I feel really dope that like I'm a young person building a business, figuring it out, but I'm also like a young person having to deal with like the issues of the world, and also like, why did I have to like create this in the first place? And then it's like, not having mentorship along the way, and having to like really like put myself out there to find it, because it wasn't like handed to me in any way. And I think that that's just been really cool. And that's why like I try my best through my platform to provide as many resources as I can to other people, because I want this to be easier for others. Because I think also a really important part of entrepreneurship, because a lot of us are groundbreakers, it's really important that we carve the path out for other people, not just ourselves. And I think that that's something that like I've shifted my mindset more of, is like from like survival of like my business and keeping my own lights on, to now being like, how can I make sure I'm of service to other people?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Emellie, just something Christy just said is like, how do you make sure that people, you're all over the world. People are using your methods and your training. And, I was looking on your website yesterday, and it's just like, it's so extensive. It's fantastic. How are you, how do you, it's still a business, right? It's the film industry, and it still has, value adds, and it's easy for us because we're already in the space. So we're like, of course you want to do this. Of course this makes sense. Of course, whatever. But I'm sure you're asked every single time, how do you make your business case? how do you convince people that this is going to work if, they want to be sustainable, but I mean, it's not in the budget. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a really exciting shift happened for us. I would say it was like late 2019, early 2020. So we're talking pre-pandemic. But I noticed when I started having conversations with producers and UPMs who wanted to make their productions more sustainable and, were feeling out working with us, the conversation was no longer about why. It used to be about the why. Why should I care about this? I have a million other things to think about. Like, it's not my job to save the planet. It's my job to make this production on time and in budget, right? So why should I care, basically? And I started going into the conversations about just ready to talk about the why. And they were just sort of cutting me off. And they were like, yeah, no, I get it. So like, just tell me how. Like, let's just talk about the how. And so that's a really exciting shift for me that it took years, literal years. And so basically now the question is less of like, are we going to make this production sustainable more and more? And it's really about how, like, what are the focuses going to be? And so we're always trying to make the case for, any good business solves pain points, right? Like, that's what you need to solve somebody's pain point. And in production, time is money, right? And a lot of people have a lot of different things going on at any given moment. And so for us, we really try to communicate that, like, we're basically like an outsourced sustainability department. Like, we will handle this for you. Theoretically, a production could figure out how to feed 100 people or 200 people on their own every day, but they don't want to spend their time doing that. So they hire a catering department to do that, right? So we sort of articulate the same thing around sustainability. And then the other big value add that we've tried to create at Earth Angel is this sort of like front of house and back of house model. So we have like our front of house staff, which are eco PAs who are on the ground, setting up zero waste stations, educating crew members, monitoring the program. We have regional coordinators who oversee those PAs and do more kind of like high level department meetings and tracking and so on. And we also have our eco supervisor monitoring all of our projects too. But then on the back of the house side, we have specialized people dedicated to different areas of sustainability. So we have an analytics manager who's just doing all of the metrics and reports and trying to figure out how can we continue to raise the bar on how we're both collecting, analyzing, and presenting data to productions, right? And that's obviously an extremely big value add because these corporations have, these massive ESG reports that they put out every year. And if we can show with hard data, this is the impact we're making, here's how we're reducing it, here's how we're saving money, there's tremendous value there. We also have like our materials coordinator who's just focused on asset repurposing, material recovery, sourcing sustainable products and solutions. We have our strategy manager who's, focused on like, how do we bring like the latest and greatest in sustainable innovation and technology into what we're doing? So to me, I think our biggest push as a company has really been about articulating like sustainability is complex, it's ever changing, and production is organized chaos. So trying to fuse those things is complicated, right? If it were easy, we would have figured it out by now, and every set everywhere around the world would be a carbon neutral set. But it is a process of changing habits, of acknowledging the fact that our industry is an intersection of a lot of different types of industries too. So we have to have expertise and research and, all of these, and then making that fit within the production logistics of wherever it might be that we're filming. So it's a complicated process, but we really like to articulate that, we try to help make this complicated thing easy, seamless, integrated into the production, day-to-day aspects. And, that's for us what's gotten us really far in terms of people understanding the value.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's complicated. It is complicated. It's, it is a science. It's based on science, right? But it's also easy, right? It's also something that every single one can do. And for me, I notice that what drives me crazy is when people go, yeah, but I like my car. Yeah, but I like my paper. Yeah, but I like my Starbucks Earth cup. or whatever. So how do you guys, and this kind of feeds into a question we've got from our audience. How did you keep yourself motivated when you hit roadblocks especially in the early stages where you just don't know how to get past, you can't be heard, right? Like how do you guys how did you deal with that? Steve?
Well, on what you just said about I need my paper. So my job was as a writer's assistant. I was working on this ABC show, and I let the show since, but we converted basically all the writers' room to Scriptation users, and they were all going paperless. And there was like one person that said, like, I need my paper. I need this. So I left the show, and maybe 6 months later, they were into the next season. The same guy said, I love Scriptation. I don't know what I was thinking. This is great. It's about comfort. So it's about going back to, I think you said this, about going back to what people are comfortable with. And it's a lot easier to make the change on television shows that have established seasons, because you can set, and Clara, I want to throw this back at you, because you implemented a lot of policies on your show that are incredible. You just said, we're doing this. And they did it. And everyone it's like you get the complaint at the beginning, and then that's just the way things are going to be done. So just the question back at you, I mean, tell us a couple things that you did on The Magicians when you worked on that show.
Well, I mean, I've always come at producing from egoless place. I started very young. I was 27 years old. I'm a girl. It was, I couldn't play the same card that I'd seen in the movies of the producer, right? So what I did was, some people might call it manipulation. Some people might call it challenging, but it was, literally, especially with the scripts, I went to the first AD and he's like, I love my paper. And I go, yeah, I know, but you're really going to fall behind. You're going to look like you're outdated. So try it for one episode. If you hate it, I won't bug you anymore. 3 days later, he came back and he said, I'm in. I got this. And his 30-year career script binder, which was worn, which had like stickers from all the shows he'd ever done and all that stuff. It was almost like we had a little ceremony and put it on the shelf, So I think it's, you've had the aha moment. You're waiting for people to have the aha moment. I was the boss. I was the producer. So what are they going to say, to be fair? But I think that even now when I talk to people, it seems that the awareness and the networking isn't quite there. And I was at a thing yesterday where a construction guy said, oh yeah, I heard what you're doing now. I'm about to tear down 5 sets tomorrow, but we built them for repurposing. Do you have any ideas? And I'm like, yeah. And I go, that guy over there, like just literally at the next table, he wrapped an entire 22 episodes of television with 1 bin of garbage. You guys need to talk. And I think that's what's so great about what we're doing here and what we're doing in the space is creating that support that we can keep going, that we're not the only ones doing this. There are people doing this. There are people interested in it. And I think that's what's, that's what keeps you motivated. When you hit your roadblock is you just go, well, I got to keep going. I care and I'm going to keep going. And I can make small changes or I can make that'll turn into big changes. Emellie, how do you think? What do you think? How would you field that question?
I actually agree 100%, Clara. When you asked this question, I was like, community is what keeps me going. I remember being very intimidated early on. Like I greened my first set when I was 22 years old, and I started this company when I was 24 years old. And I remember going into meetings with typically much older male white producers and sitting across the table from them and being asked how old I was in these meetings, and me just being like, why is that relevant right now? I'm here to tell you about how I've greened all these sets, and like, here are these tactics and here are these tools, and like, we can come together and we can achieve this. And so there was definitely some very real, you know, roadblocks in the traditional sense of how this industry, I think, has had some roadblocks. But I think at the end of the day, like, whenever I would just like feel really defeated, I would go back to the other people who I know who are working on this. And I'd be like, guys, I'm having one of those defeated days. I need help right now. And for me, that was like, the organization Film Biz Recycling, that was in New York City for a long time. And it relocated to Savannah, Georgia. But, you know, the community that came out of that, and there's just like, when it's incredible what can happen when you bring people together who support one another. And that was why it was so important for me to join the board of Young Entertainment Activists, because for me, had I graduated from film school and started this journey and there was something like Young Entertainment Activists that already existed, oh my gosh, would it have completely changed my career trajectory, my confidence level. You know, I think about how much more impact could have been made just by fostering community like that. So I'd say to anyone who's experiencing that, those types of feelings or anything, you're in the right place. And so thank you for joining us. And yeah, that's my 2 cents on how I keep going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, community. And Christy, I'm going to ask you something I've been dying to ask since your introduction is, you know, you're absolutely right. I wish that sustainability had COVID's PR manager, right? Like, we know that the industry can shift. We've seen it. We were the first industry back on our feet in the pandemic. We have successfully produced probably more content in the last 12 months than we did in the 12 months before the pandemic. Our crews are rock stars, you know, from the top to the bottom to the top. Every single person who decided to work all day with a mask or figure out how to hook up the internet so that they weren't glitching out, or train their dog so that they could talk all day on, you know, however, we're all like, this industry is, our job is to innovate and to create a new world and to visualize it and produce it. Like, I mean, I've done Vietnam and Calgary. I've done the South Pole in Toronto. I've done, you know, Washington, DC in Budapest. Like, we can do this. So from a PR, marketing, sustainability perspective, what do we need to do? What aren't we doing? How can we do this better?
Yeah, I mean, I love that question. I mean, just like to summarize everything you all said, you all had like such wisdom. I was like learning so much from just everything that you said. But I would just say that like, something that really needs to shift is definitely just like more ad dollars. Like, the fossil fuel industry is pouring so much ad spending into content marketing, like on social media, but also just like advertisements, probably even in Hollywood. I mean, I don't know all the statistics or data on it, but I just know that, you know, there's articles saying that like the fossil fuel industry has poured so much money into PR to make it mainstream that like, you know, these things are normal, or like, this is the way everything has to be, or even like big plastic saying this is the way it has to be. Like, we've been conditioned so much by the media to think that environmental unsustainability is the only way we can live our lives in comfort. And it's become, you know, so much a part of how we live our lives. And it's not necessarily consumers' fault. Like, it has to be blamed on companies who profit off of the destruction of the planet. And so I think that the way that things need to be better is that industries who don't want to do that and don't want to be associated with destroying the planet need to pour their money into promoting things like zero waste alternatives and greening sets and putting their money behind it. Like, don't just say you care about these things, actually like rework your business model to be more circular, by thinking about the waste that you're producing and where your consumers are going to throw out your products at the end of life. You need to be thinking about who are the voices you're amplifying. Is it the same voices around environmental issues that might not be intersectional? You have to think about just like where you're redistributing those resources. And if you're not doing that, then you have to ask yourself, are you really making the impact you're trying to make? Or are you just greenwashing by saying that you want to do these things, but not actually following through? And I just think the work that, you all are doing, I feel like is addressing things at the source of the problem, and making it scalable. And that's exactly what we need more people to be doing in every industry. So I think you all are like living examples of people who are like scaling stuff at the source. So I think that people should just check out your work and like keep building out those models and keep sharing those resources, because like I said, like we need that redistribution of resources so more people can make innovative ideas happen in real life too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that, what we've all found, and what, again, with this amazing summit and the ambassador network that's coming up, is that, the big, huge corporations are going to react to us. They're going to react to the people on the shows. And, on my own shows, there were 300, 500 people who were working together. And, we put up posters by the fridge, on the fridge, saying, we are a sustainable production. Come ask us how, right? And suddenly it became the locker room talk. It became the kitchen talk. It's like film crews. We spend a lot of time doing nothing, to be honest, while we're waiting for the shot, or we're waiting for this, or we're waiting for the script, or we're waiting for whatever. And instead of this just becoming, instead of talking about, the weather, or I got these great pair of boots, or, we worked so hard last night, or production, whatever, this person over there, or this department screwed up, or whatever, our entire conversation for 2 seasons of television turned to how good we were doing. It turned to how we had we reduced paper by like 70%. We reduced fuel by like 30%. We reduced waste by, I think we went from a 70% diversion rate to a 95% diversion rate. We were all in all the time. And it gave those people working on sets and working in the office and working in production offices, and anyone starting out, or anyone who's been there a long time and getting frustrated, it gave us all hope that we made a difference. And I think that while we're waiting for everybody to, for it to become the main page item on every single news feed, let's do it ourselves. Let's network, let's look at our resources, and let's do this. It took 5 years for the film industry to drop film and become digital. So we're due now. We can get this done.
And I just want to say that when we're talking about the struggles of, business, when you're starting to try and figure things out, something that we need are champions. And you need a champion at, I can't do this myself. And I was pitching to studios, even sustainability departments, and I was having to explain the particular problem. And if I had to explain the problem to them, they weren't going to get the solution. So on the individual shows, you need champions. And Clara, you're a champion on the show, and we need more of people like you.
Well, thank you very much. You guys are all champions, and everybody watching here is a champion just to be just because you tuned in, because we know you care. And I think our time is up. But thank you guys so much for doing this and for tuning in. And yeah, we got this. Let's do it.